McMinnville has long been known as a foodie town. A foodie is someone who is passionate about enjoying and learning about food. From the giant celery of 100 years ago to the international Pinot Noir celebration of today, food is big here. All of that makes food an important part of Yamhill County culture, which makes it fair game for us. Not that we need any inducement when it comes to food. When we heard that the Friends of the Library were presenting a talk by Eric Ferguson of Nick's Italian Cafe and Fino in Fondo, we couldn't resist filming it. Nick's and Fino are two of our favorite places in town. Eric trained as a chef in Charlotte and studied sausage making in Italy. Eric's presentation was exciting and right in keeping with the idea of learning about your food. If you're vegan, though, you may want to skip it. Lori Furch of the Red Fox Bakery and president of Friends of the Library will tell you why.
I'd like to thank you all for coming to the second week of the Explore Oregon series that the Friends of the Library puts on. This week we are lucky enough to have Eric Ferguson come and join us. Today he's here to teach us, or to show us, just how easy it is to cut up your own pig.
We're going to go through, and I'm going to take you sort of through how at Fino and Fondo when we get pork in, and all the way through to the finished product. I'll show you casing some sausage. If you wanted to do this at home, the thing to always keep in mind is that even if you make a mistake and you cut into a muscle that you weren't going to cut into, it doesn't matter. You can grind it and you have sausage. So it's sort of the thing about the pig is that you can use 100% of it. The nice thing about working with them in half already is just ease. You can see everything where it's at, and when it's whole, you have a harder time finding exactly where you want to make those cuts. The ones that we're looking for Fino and Fondo to really get the specific size cuts that we want to use for curing, for the Italian style curing, we're looking at pigs that are right around 275 pounds hanging weight. So the first thing we'll do on the pig is you want to cut it into primals. So what we'll do is we'll just cut this into 3 pieces. In America, they cut it much closer, and in Italy, they come down a little bit further down the back. I like to go on the 3rd bone, or the leg side of the 3rd bone. You'll hit the shoulder blade eventually, and you'll want to keep going through the shoulder blade. Finish your cut. I like to have pans, or if you have a spare table, that way you can sort of keep your workspace free and keep moving. This would be the center area. When you call up Carlton Farms and you want a center cut pork loin, what they're looking at is from here to here. For a prosciutto cut, to continue with the primals, first thing, you look and the spine starts to curve. You look for that spot and you want to cut it right on the curve. But the first thing you want to do, you'll notice I hold a knife like a pistol. The pistol grip is going to give you the strongest, most accurate cut. Is there any questions while I'm doing this? Just, I knew you'd have one.
Are they raw?
Or what raw?
Are the sausages?
The ones that we make at Fino? Nope. So they're dry cured. So we ferment the sausage. We use the shoulder, and we'll use different muscles for different salamis and different sausages. You grind it, duff it into, add your seasonings and a bacteria, positive bacteria, and then you put it into casings and then ferment it. So it's actually a fermented product like wine. Notice when I'm cutting like this, I'm standing off to the side. The Americans focus a lot more on the belly for the bacon, the leg for hams, the shoulder for sausage. Americans will cut it here because this is sort of the short loin, they call it. And so you can see it doesn't look like that normal pork loin that you do because it's actually closer to the leg muscle in texture. So Americans want this portion so that the neck is no longer sort of associated with that, and neither is the short loin or towards the leg. The center cut, one of the nice things about this is it's pretty versatile. You can debone this whole portion and you can season it, put it in the cooler, and then roll the whole thing, the belly around the loin, and slow roast it, and that would be your mock porchetta. You can see where the loin is, and you can see where the belly starts. We'll cut this in half one more time. So you go just to the opposite side of where that last bone would be. You get through. The saw doesn't really like skin that much. So this is your chops. This is where your pork chops start. And depending on how big and how fun you want them, there's a couple of ways you can go about it. Right where this bone ends, there's sort of a knuckle where the cartilage starts. or the cartilage down on the lower ribs. So you can actually just use your knife and go straight through, as if this is the second tastiest thing on the pork, or on the pig. So this is sort of the breastplate. This is right up in here. What you do is you keep these bones on. I like go in, open it up like this, stuff it, tie it up, and slow roast it or braise it. So now we've got our center cut. So we've got the typical chops there. And I'm going to keep them real long because I want them nice and dramatic. Go down to the bone. You want to ride as close to the bones as possible. It's just going to make for less work down the road. This is a nice little piece, kind of your bacon. You can salt it, cure it separately. Or I also like to braise this piece because there's, as you can see, a lot more meat. Some people like more fat, some people like less fat on the outside of their chops. This is the time where you get to make that decision for yourself. You notice just nice, long, clean strokes. You never want to like saw at it to finish these chops. You go down the bone. This particular cut is one of those things that they would consider a butcher's cut. People don't normally buy this, but when the butcher is working, he'll usually save a little pile for himself, and that would be one of them. And in Italy, when I say just cook it to death, if you just cook this to temperature like 140 degrees, it'll be really chewy and really hard to eat, but the further and harder you cook it, the more tender and tasty it'll be. Just go down with your cleaver. One of the things that they teach you when you use a cleaver, never look at this hand. If you don't look at that hand, you won't hit it. When you clean up these, I like to hold the chop in your hand, and with the back side of your knife, so you don't ruin the edge, scrape down away, and then hold it, don't look, so you've got your nice clean French pork chops. One of the things that I like to do at the restaurant and at home, it's a neat trick. Follow the bone down until you hit the chine bone or that backbone. So you basically open that up. And then I like to stuff herbs and lemon and salt that backside, black pepper, then roll it back, tie it back to the bone, and then roast it. You get a lot more flavor into the roast. So now we'll do the bacon. So we've got the other side of that belly and the end of the loin. Get underneath those bones. What I normally do for all the scraps as you go, start a sausage pile. As you're cleaning, cut all that bone so you can have a stock later. If you have, say, this loin, if you have this and you want to roast this, one of the tricks is to cut these, taking the skin off, and then you can take your knife, insert it, spin it, and then insert. So you just stuff that in there, work it down, make it more moist when you eat it. So we've got a chunk of belly here. This would be something that you could most definitely use for a meatier style bacon. It's that sort of end part. You cure it for about a week, salt and nitrite, so the pink salt. Get your bacon hanger, and then you smoke your bacon. Back in our shoulder piece, minus the foot, right here is what the Italians would call the coppa, or the capocollo. To debone this shoulder, you basically want to do it so that you can open it up and see what you're doing. A lot of the times when you're butchering, if you can't see it, unless you've done it 1,000 times, you don't know where it is. And so you always want to kind of be thinking, if you follow a seam on a muscle or follow a bone, you're going to have better luck with that. And so you want to use the weight when you're butchering, use the natural weight of the animal. We've removed sort of that upper rib cage and the neck muscle. You can see right here, this is that capocollo, but we're going to preserve it. So you ride this all the way down until you hit that shoulder blade, and you go just to the end of that shoulder blade. So here we have that neck muscle. This is the coppa. This is one of my favorite things to cook with and to eat just because of how much fat is inside it. Really cooks really tender, even as steaks or as a roast, it's really tasty. I'll take this piece of fat off. This chunk of fat is usually one of the best ones to cure if you want to do lardo. So basically the same thing, the salt and the pink salt, and let it sit. This just becomes real buttery and stays really pink. This is that coppa. You just cut steaks just like that, sear them, eat them, or just tie this up, salt and pepper, slow roast it. So I'm going to take the shoulder blade out quick by making a couple of cuts. Now you can actually see the whole shoulder blade. Put a little pressure on the blade itself, and you'll pop open where that socket is. So then we've got our shoulder. Again, just make a cut to see what you're doing. What you do is you just kind of work around that bone. So now you have your boneless shoulder. This is the best sausage meat on the whole pig, just because on average the shoulder meat has about 30% fat, and 30% fat is really kind of that golden sweet spot for making a juicy sausage. So I'll show you guys the fun cut for the prosciutto, and then we'll go in and actually break this down, and I'll show you the individual muscles on the leg. This one's a lot more complicated. Right here you've got the connection of that hip bone. Once you've cut sort of through that socket, you can see exactly, you can see the bone, you can see the socket. Now we've opened it up, kind of hold on to the tail, and with a forward motion, you create that bell. You know, if you're going to dry cure your own at home, you really want to press hard. You want to massage this. If you cure it with the blood inside that leg, along that bone, and in the main vein that's in there, it produces off flavors. So you massage for a little while, and then you just take your towel and get all that blood out. You tie it up, and there's your prosciutto. And it looks crooked now, but as the weight hangs, straightens the leg, it evens the shape out. So the next thing we'll do, just kind of break this down and show you how to get that ham, show you the culatello. It's sort of like, why would you ever cut into the best thing in the world, which is prosciutto? And the only reason you would do that is to make culatello, because it's better. So you ride that bone just on the other side. So this is sort of that center ham. You know, when you buy ham at Carlton Farms already done, this is the cut, this is the muscle that they use. Traditionally cured, salted, then tied to make it look like a pear. And then this usually ages about 10 months. And this is also a really good roast. This would be one of those things that you would tie up, brine for half a week, then roast it. When I was the chef of a place in Charlotte, I didn't have a grinder, just a tabletop grinder.
And you chill your meat very, very cold.
Especially with a hand grinder, if you can even pop it in the freezer for a minute to where it almost starts to freeze, it grinds a lot easier. The other thing with grinding meat at home, and you're making sausage, making sure your temperature stays below 50 degrees. If the temperature goes above 55 degrees, the proteins and fats will start to separate, and you'll get a really sort of grainy, dry sausage. For lamb sausage at the restaurant, we use sheep casings, and for pork sausage, we use hog casings. When you case this, you don't want to do it too tight. When you case sausage too tight, what happens is as you spin it or actually make the links, they'll just explode. The other thing you want to do is if you are making your sausage at home and you're stuffing it, you definitely want to let it hang or sit in the cooler for a little while. Sort of relaxes everything. Otherwise, if you case it and go straight to cooking it, the casings will explode. Give it a spin. You can use a toothpick at home or a skewer or something. I use this handy dandy. It'll get any of the air or excess air that's in the sausage out. So when you get to do your links, you can do them any size you want to and give it a spin. That'll bring all the meat together. For our Italian sausage, I use fennel seed, black pepper, salt obviously, onion powder, garlic powder, chili flakes, and that's it. Your sausages. Well, thank you guys for coming and watching me butcher a pig. It's kind of a fun project. You know, at home, you can see I did it on this one little table. It doesn't take up much room. You just can kind of, you know, on a Sunday, have the family around and everybody help out. That's how we did it when we were in Italy. You know, being attached to the animal and knowing that it doesn't come in styrofoam, knowing that it comes from a place, from a farm, that somebody, you know, somebody actually had to kill that animal and it's alive. And it's so important to utilize everything when you're doing this, just because it's a waste of a life, it's a waste of something that could have fed somebody.